What's up, good peoples? It's the Ancestry Chronicler here, the Sean J. Gandy. I'm sitting here once again in Freetown, Sierra Leone, and you know what to do. Subscribe, like, and share. And when you get a chance, leave a comment. I always enjoy reading your comments. And today, I'm here with my man, Joe, Authentic African, who, his YouTube channel has helped me out so much in preparing for my journey to get here. So I'm gonna let him introduce himself, tell you who he is, and then we're gonna just chop it up a bit.
Sounds good. So my name is Joannes, or Joe Hotagua. I'm a Sierra Leonean American. I live in Accra, Ghana. I'm back and forth between Ghana and Sierra Leone. I'm building a house in Sierra Leone. My family is from Sierra Leone, so I spend a lot of time here. And so we happen to be here at the same time while I'm working on my house.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were trying to get together prior to this, a few weeks before, but our schedules weren't meeting up. Yeah. And then we realized that we were going to be in Sierra Leone at the same time. So we was like, well, let's just get together there, which I think is just beautiful, the fact that we're able to meet up there. And another thing I think is beautiful is that Joe is, as he forestated, he is Sierra Leonean. And I just discovered earlier this year that I'm also Sierra Leonean through my father's maternal line. And so it's just beautiful that I'm finally here. So I have some questions for you, Joe, just in terms of just navigating Sierra Leone.
Sure.
For me, just being here, I was totally unprepared for Freetown.
Yeah.
Just the energy, the kinetic energy, the vibe.
Yeah.
And it took me a minute to like really adjust to it because I was overwhelmed. Like, what in the world is this? You know, and I live, like 30 minutes outside of New York and, Philly or whatever. And like there's no city like Freetown.
Agreed.
What's your take on Freetown?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, you mentioned New York. New York is a city that people always talk about has a personality of its own, right? Mm-hmm. When they shoot movies in New York, they say New York City is its own character. Yeah. And so I would say what would you get with Sierra Leone is that same hustle mentality, but we're in a place where people are more communal. There's a more communal vibe, right? So, but people are also hungry here. So you get a little bit of all of what you get in New York with more of a personal connection. Yeah. So you get the hustle in New York, you get the nightlife in New York, you get the busyness, the traffic, you get all of that. But then what you also get is that communal vibe, people who feel like family. When someone who's younger than you, they call you uncle, they call you auntie. It's, it takes a village to raise a child, and we actually live by that here in Sierra Leone. And so one of the things I would say is when I was in New York, I spent, my entire adult life, and I went back and forth between Pennsylvania and New York growing up, going to boarding school. And I never said hi to anyone that was not a personal relative of mine or somebody that I knew, right? Right. Like I walk into an elevator, there's 5 people in the elevator, nobody acknowledges each other at all. I didn't know my neighbors. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't talk to anybody in New York. And when I started coming to Sierra Leone, that changed a bit because, people greet you all the time and they're happy to greet you. And so I think that was a big difference, I would say. But yeah, I mean, if you are used to New York, if you've ever been to New York, it's that vibrant with that separate type of cultural exchange where people really feel more like family. So that'd be the best way to describe it. But it's busy and it's crazy though. It's wild. It's wild here in Sierra Leone.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think the whole communal thing is a theme that comes up every time I talk to someone who's from here. And so it seems that Sierra Leone is very self-aware of that mentality, of that characteristic that they have, which I think is good because it means that they're consciously bringing that out. Like that's something that they want to do. It's not just it's not just a tradition. It's not just a ritual, but it is perpetually made a part of the culture. And I love that about Sierra Leone.
Absolutely, something we're proud about. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sure. What has it been like for you coming home to Sierra Leone, having grew up in the States?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I think my context is a little bit different for some other folks, right? I have a different context because both my parents were born and raised in Sierra Leone, went to the States in their 20s. So they got to adulthood living here. My mother actually went to college here and went to the States. My father ended up going to school in the States for his, post, whatever you call it, post-secondary education, right? So, I had a lot of an understanding from their perspective, but the thing is, like, when you're growing up, you hear stories from the previous generation or 2 generations above me, technically, and you kind of feel like they're exaggerating, right? My mom would be like, we used to wash our clothes in the river by hand. My dad used to always talk about, like, there are people in our family that are starving, so you need to finish all the food on your plate. Like, it's not like when other people go, like, their kids in Africa starving. It's like, we know people that are starving, And so these are things that I would hear, and I was just like, okay, you guys are exaggerating. And then I came and actually saw the lifestyle, and I saw people washing clothes in the river, and it made sense because my mom would always wash the clothes by hand, then take it to the laundromat, which I never understood. But she was so used to knowing that she could clean it best. The machine can't clean it. She never used the dishwasher. She used the dishwasher to dry her dishes, not to actually wash her dishes, right? And so there was a little bit of context first, but when I got here, it still was a culture shock for me. I had been many places around the world. I think prior to coming to Sierra Leone, I had been to Brazil, Hawaii, parts of Europe, but I had never been to the continent of Africa before coming to Sierra Leone. I came when I was 25, and it was a huge culture shock for me. The airport was one thing in and of itself. That was a whole thing.
For sure.
Having to and we took the ferry, not even see Culture Seabird back then. And so that was a big culture shock. I think the other thing for me too was I didn't realize how beneficial it is to be able to speak Creole here in Sierra Leone. I understood it, so that was cool, that was easy, but being able to speak it back was the biggest challenge. Recall is difficult. But outside of that, though, it gave me a sense of purpose. When I came to Sierra Leone for the first time, I actually came for a funeral. And I came from my aunt's funeral, and she was somebody who had a huge impact here, and it gave me an idea of legacy. That was the first time I ever thought of legacy. I was 25 years old. I had never thought of legacy before. I thought I wanted to be a billionaire. I wanted to be rich. It was really more about women and status than really about what I was going to do with that money or what work I was going to do to get there. And then it was the first time I ever thought of legacy. And then that second week that I was here, because I was here for 2 weeks, I went to where my grandfather was from, and he was chief in Bo. His father was the first chief of Bo.
Oh, wow.
And so...
so you're Mende?
Yeah, Mende, and Creole, Mende and Creole. My mom's side's Creole, my dad's side's Mende.
Right,
and so that for me was hugely important because it really gave me a sense of pride beyond what I already had. I had heard that my grandfather was a chief, but it's different when people start calling you chief. And you kind of get that real connection. I went to his gravesite. I went to his old compound. I got a chance to see who I am and where I come from. And then lastly, the only places I ever heard Creole was in my parents' house. My mom used to speak Creole to us out in the streets, but then she started speaking English to assimilate in the United States. And we also used to be embarrassed because it wasn't cool to be African in the 90s and the late 80s, right?
Right, true.
And so at that time, we would always ask her not to speak Creole to us, speak English. So I only heard Creole in her house. And then when I came here, I heard it as soon as I hit the airport. In fact, I heard it at JFK before getting on the flight because there were other Sierra Leoneans getting on that flight. And so it immediately felt like home no matter where I was because I only heard Creole at home. So, I mean, that's a long way to answer it. That's the good and the bad and then the good. But that for me, I think, was how I first was impacted by that first trip to Sierra Leone.
Wow, that's what's up. That's good stuff, man. I think that is what makes it beautiful, is that for you, you already have some working knowledge of it. And even still, like you said, like you had the culture shock. For me, Sierra Leone is one of those places where you gotta come and experience it. Like I watched crazy videos before I came here. Just read so much up on it, literature, but I wasn't prepared for it until I actually came here. It's just one of those things you have to experience.
100%.
Now I hear a lot of people talk about folks we know in common who lived abroad. Parents had left because of the Civil War, but they decided to come back. They talk about coming back here because they say that they just believe in Sierra Leone. They love it, and they have this hope for it.
Yeah.
What brought you back, and what makes you, want to call this place home?
It's a good question. Yeah, so so that first trip, I was about 25 years old, and legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the first thing, and I just thought to myself, like, what can I do here? So I didn't really know what I was gonna do, and so I spent the next 7 years coming back on and off, and then like the last 3 years, I was here 6 times in 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. And it became more apparent where I can add value, and also that I could live on the continent. Mm-hmm. So I started developing friendships. I have a good set of friends. We call ourselves the party starters because the party starts when we walk in. And so that group are a bunch of people who grew up elsewhere, who live here now. They've started businesses. I'm on the board of a nonprofit with 2 of them. And over time, I started to develop more of an affinity for Sierra Leone, beyond just feeling excited about knowing where I come from, but actually being excited about where Sierra Leone can go. Mm-hmm. And I look at Sierra Leone now as like what the early settlers did in the United States, right? Okay. In the early days, and the amount of potential that's there.
Yes.
But the potential is bigger here because we can accelerate faster with new technology, right? So we can catch up faster.
Right.
I think when what was going on them is they used human capital from here, right, to build that country, the United States in particular. But now we can use intellectual capital to build this country.
Yes.
And so I know that I can be here on the ground floor. I've been in many different type of business opportunities where like getting on the ground floor, and this really is the ground floor. So for me, there was 2 elements to it. There's the legacy. There's the potential to do good for the people of Sierra Leone, but then there's also the potential to do well financially. So I'm a responsible capitalist. I am a capitalist. I'm a lefty liberal who spent 4 years in California getting indoctrinated in that liberal mindset. But I still believe in capitalism, and I do think that is really what's necessary here. The private sector, building up the private sector, and I believe in responsible capitalism. So you can do good and do well at the same time. And so for me, I saw those things converging in Sierra Leone. But why I'm building here is because real estate is the one resource that is not unlimited, or one of the resources that is not unlimited. And it's important to own a piece of the earth so that you can pass that on to future generations. And it can be a potential residual income stream. Right. We have multiple options. You have Airbnb, you have VRBO, and then you also have the ability to just rent. So why not find a place, build a place, and rent it out? So that is why I wanted to start building. I started a business here. I'm employing people. My social media manager's here somewhere, walking around somewhere. I employ people here, and I just feel like I'm doing well, and I'm putting my money where my mouth is. Yeah. I spent a lot of time talking about how I wanted to see things change in Sierra Leone, but I wasn't doing anything about it.
Okay. And
so, and it feels good to do it, even if I'm spending a lot of money and not making a lot of money. For me, I'm feeling good about what I'm doing. I spent 4 years working at Hulu, and many of my subscribers know I've talked about that on a few occasions, and it was great for my ego. But what I do now is great for my soul. You know what I'm saying? Wow, I think it's been really big for me, and I was rejuvenated and came back with a renewed sense of purpose every time I came to Sierra Leone. Yeah. So I felt like if I kept having that happen to me, but then it was draining when I went to the States, why not keep it flowing? And come back here. And so now I chose Ghana over Sierra Leone. I'll just jump into that real quickly because I needed to be able to work on the ground. And one of the challenges with Sierra Leone is many of the businesses here that pay wages that are more like what you're used to are NGOs or nonprofits. And with a 16-year career, I'd have to enter at an entry level at one of those places because I do not have a master's degree. Okay. And master's degrees are really important in that industry. And also, like I said, I'm a for-profit individual, so NGOs and nonprofits don't work for me. Right, so that is why I moved to Ghana in particular, and it allows me to go back and forth. So I can come here pretty often, so I can still be nearby. I can develop and learn some things and some skills and learn about the context of West Africa from Ghana's perspective and see what I can learn there and bring back to Sierra Leone.
Wow, that's beautiful, man. And so what I hear you saying is that you're not just looking at what you're looking at when you look at Sierra Leone, but you're looking at the potential that's in this place and what it can be. So you're looking forward with it. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I guess my last question to you is what would you tell people who are Sierra Leonean by birth, or who have even discovered, through DNA, and they live elsewhere?
Yep.
The diaspora that lives in other places. What would you tell them to get them, or that you would want them to know about Sierra Leone to make them want to come home or come back?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think it's two different answers for two different groups, right? Those of you who've left Sierra Leone, you left because it didn't have what you needed. But you can't look for the government to give you what you need. You have to build what you need. And so we need you to be here to build it for the next generation of people. So for those of you who left, you guys all know the reasons you left, and my parents had their reasons, and I'm actually happy that they did because I got the American context. I'm grateful for living in the United States. Let me just say that first and foremost. I'm not an America basher. It has its challenges, but I will say, so I understand that you went there, and you went there for those reasons, but it's not just enough to remit money back here to family members. It's you have to come back here. Otherwise, the country that you left and that you felt like you had to leave will only get worse, because the brain drain issue continues to happen after every generation. Right. And so, while you still have energy, while you're still young, come back and build. At least build, because you can build your wealth that way. Even if you don't care about the people of Sierra Leone, just by coming and focusing on yourself, you're still benefiting the people of Sierra Leone. You're hiring contractors, you're hiring workers, you are buying materials from people here locally, so you're actually building the country while building your wealth. So you might as well do that. Yeah. So for those of you who are Sierra Leonean who've left, I would say that to you, you have a benefit of being able to build a country and navigate this landscape in a way that other people wish that they could. So that's what I would say to those who are Sierra Leonean who have left. Those of you who are not Sierra Leonean, who are of Sierra Leonean descent and are elsewhere and are interested in coming or have been thinking about coming, I would say you definitely should come. Number one, come multiple times and figure out what makes sense for you. Job security is an oxymoron, right? I lived through the financial crisis as a 24-year-old. I was making $75,000 a year. I thought I was on top of the world. And I was brought into office one day. They told me my job was my services were no longer needed. And I was on food stamps and I was on unemployment, wearing True Religion jeans and Prada sneakers. And that was a big wake-up call for me that job's not going to do it. Right. And, really it does make sense to start some kind of entrepreneurial journey. And why not do that somewhere where you can get a business up going a little bit faster, you can do good and do well at the same time, and you don't have to compete with other people who have complexion protection. So I would definitely say, you're welcome here. You can get your citizenship here, and two passport privileges is a whole different thing. You get your Sierra Leone passport. You can go to 16 different countries in West Africa. You can move freely between these countries, and even if you don't want to just settle in Sierra Leone, you can go elsewhere. So, to those of you who have considered it, thought about it, not really sure, just do it. I would tell you 100%, just do it and come here multiple times. You may not figure it out on the first trip, but definitely come multiple times. And I will say that I'll leave it with two more things on that topic. One, you may have that spiritual awakening when you come here the first time. You may not. It may take a few trips. Sometimes it happens for people on the first trip. Sometimes it happens on the second or third trip, whatever. But the land that you're in is not the land that you're from, right? And so there's a reason why there's a bit of an aversion to where you are. Wow. Even the fact that when you have people like, I remember people like, I'm from Brooklyn, I rep Bed-Stuy, people killing themselves over land that their parents don't own and they don't own, Yep. But like, be a landowner, and you can be a landowner for much cheaper here than you can be a landowner there. So I would say that. And then the other thing is, a lot of times we talk about community building, right? Yeah. The Nation of Islam is trying to build a nation within a nation, and I really respect what they're doing. Unfortunately, they're still trying to build a nation within a nation. There's already another nation here, many nations here that you can be a part of, and especially if you're Sierra Leone, you can come get your citizenship and you can do that here. So that's what I would say to those folks who are either from Sierra Leone who have left, or those who are of Sierra Leonean descent and not really sure about what to do. Wow.
So you heard it. That's from my man Joe, Authentic African. Tell them how they can follow you, like your social media, things of that nature.
Sure. So I am on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Technically, I'm on Facebook too, but I think the best place to find me is YouTube, because YouTube is where you'll find my exact story, and you follow me along as I do weekly vlogs, and I do live every Mondays. So it's just Authentic African. You search for Authentic African. It's the Pan-African flag with the fist in the middle, and then you'll see Authentic African. It's like a seal of approval. That's what it looks like. So you'll see that there. I'm Authentic_African on Instagram, and then on TikTok, I'm Authentic_African. So you can find me on all three of those platforms. Follow me there, and you'll get a lot more of conversations like this on those platforms.
Wow, that's what's up. That's what's up, Joe. I appreciate this, man.
I appreciate it.
Thank
as
you
well,
for the
man.
time, bro.
Of course,
and
absolutely.
got a chance to hang out with you at the gala. That was beautiful, man.
That was a fun time.
It's just been a great 2 weeks here, and then be able to run into you and the people that we ran into, and events that we were able to share together, man.
Absolutely.
I love this place. Sweet Salon.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, yo. I'm the Ancestry Chronicler, Deshaun J. Gandy. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and share. And once again, appreciate you every single time. Peace, peace, peace.
Success.